Imagine stepping onto a bus, a place filled with tired faces, strangers minding their business, the air thick with the smell of rain on worn-out concrete. You sit, you stare out the window, you think you're invisible, but someone is watching you. Now imagine trusting that stranger, laughing with them, sharing secrets with them, and eventually planning something no one could ever forgive. On a quiet night in Denver, Colorado, police lights painted the apartment walls in flashes of blue and red. A young man, once full of dreams, once full of plans for tomorrow, was found dead inside his own home. There were no signs of a break-in, no sounds heard by the neighbors, no cries for help, just a terrible silence, and blood drying on the floor. Officers thought they knew where to look. They thought the case would be simple. A girlfriend with a broken alibi. A stranger who shouldn't have been there. Two people caught in a web of lies that stretched farther than anyone expected. But as detectives pulled at each thread, something strange began to emerge. Stories didn't line up. Memories changed. Evidence twisted. And the truth became a moving target. Who really wanted Kyle Carter dead? Was it jealousy? Was it fear? Or something deeper, something born not just out of anger, but out of pride? The woman he loved had made a new friend. A man she barely knew. A man who promised her freedom, respect, revenge all in one terrible night. But promises always come with a price. And in this story, the price would be blood. Tonight, we follow the path of betrayal, manipulation, and a plan so reckless, so cold, it would tear apart 3 lives forever. Before we continue, tell us where you're watching from in the comments and be sure to sit back and listen to this story. Kyle Carter had simple dreams. A steady job. A small house on the edge of the city. A family someday. At 28 years old, he had managed the first part, working long hours at a customer support center in downtown Denver. It wasn't glamorous. But Kyle didn't need glamorous. He needed stability, something he had spent his whole life chasing. Those who knew him spoke of a man who was careful with his words, slow to anger, quick to forgive. He smiled easily but trusted slowly. He believed in hard work, in saving up, in building something from the ground up. But even the strongest foundations can crack when the wrong person gets inside. Nia Brooks was everything Kyle wasn't. Ambitious, restless, hungry for more. At 27, she still spoke about her big plans, a career in sales, maybe management one day. She wanted recognition. She wanted to be seen. But wanting something and working for it were 2 different things. Kyle tried to support her. He offered to help her polish her resume. He drove her to interviews. He even joked, in that way people do when they mean well but don't choose the right words. You sure you can land that call center job? You don't even like talking to people that much. To Kyle, it was harmless teasing. To Nia, it cut deep. Every doubt, every sideways glance, every sigh he gave when another interview went badly, it piled up inside her like stones in her chest. She didn't say much, but she felt it. The days grew heavier between them. Little arguments that started over laundry or bills ended in long, frozen silences. Texts from Kyle asking, "You good?" went unanswered for hours. Nia's laughter, once easy, now sounded forced. In the city around them, Denver buzzed with new construction, bright coffee shops, parks filled with kids and dogs. A skyline reaching higher every year. To the outside world, everything looked like it was moving forward. But behind the closed door of Kyle's small apartment, something was stuck. Stuck and starting to fester. Then came the bus ride. One afternoon, after another interview that ended with a polite handshake and a polite rejection, Nia climbed onto a city bus heading south. She slumped into a window seat, staring out at the traffic, her phone heavy in her pocket. The world moved on without her. Across the aisle sat Marcus Lee. Older by a few years, with sharp eyes that missed nothing. He was the kind of man who blended into the background when he wanted to. The kind of man who knew how to find broken pieces in people and make himself seem like the answer. At first, it was small talk. Weather. Jobs. Dreams lost and dreams delayed. Nia laughed a little in spite of herself. Marcus listened in a way Kyle hadn't in months. He nodded at the right moments. He agreed when she said life wasn't fair. He leaned in when she hinted at feeling stuck, feeling invisible, feeling tired of always being underestimated. The bus rumbled down the street, but for Nia, it felt like she had stepped onto a different track altogether. It didn't take long before numbers were exchanged. First messages were casual, then longer, then not so casual. Marcus wasn't like Kyle. He didn't judge. He didn't push her to do better. He promised her something else, something Kyle never had. The feeling of being understood. What Nia didn't know was that Marcus had his own reasons for paying attention. Reasons that had nothing to do with friendship, and everything to do with opportunity. As weeks passed, Nia started to change. Late-night phone calls. Secret meetings. Moments when Kyle caught her smiling at her phone only for her to tuck it away when he walked into the room. Kyle felt it. He wasn't stupid. But what he didn't know was how close the danger had already crept. While Denver's lights flickered across the night sky, promises were being made. Plans were being whispered. And a countdown had already begun. One Kyle didn't even know he was a part of. At first, the changes in Nia were easy to ignore. Everyone has bad days. Everyone needs space. That's what Kyle told himself. But the space between them kept stretching. Small jokes that once brought laughter now ended in cold silence. When Kyle told a friend over drinks, half laughing, half frustrated, "Man, Nia couldn't land a job if it fell in her lap," he thought it was harmless. A few harmless words spoken when she wasn't around. Except she was. She heard every word. From that night on, something shifted that couldn't be undone. Nia's smiles became tighter. Her touch, once natural, now felt rehearsed. The little arguments, about dishes, about missed calls, about forgotten plans, started stacking up like unseen weights between them. Kyle noticed the late nights, the quick way Nia would flip her phone over when he walked into the room, the sudden, strange texts that made her laugh, a laugh that wasn't for him anymore. When he asked who it was, she brushed it off. "Just an old friend," she said, looking past him. The distance between them wasn't loud. It didn't shout. It whispered. A quiet pulling away, piece by piece, until Kyle was left talking to a ghost of the woman he once knew. Meanwhile, Marcus Lee stayed close. Through every missed job offer, through every fresh rejection, through every little slight Nia bottled up and tucked away, Marcus was there, feeding the part of her that Kyle no longer could reach. He didn't rush her. He didn't push. He just listened, letting her anger settle into something heavier, letting her pride wound itself into something she could no longer walk away from. Two people from different streets, different pasts, found each other at a moment when resentment needed only the smallest spark. Nia wasn't the only one who felt counted out. Marcus carried his own anger, his own list of people he blamed for where he ended up. A long history of almost makes and almost wins. A record of second chances thrown away. Together, they didn't just see the world differently. They saw a way to fix it. A way to tip the scale back in their favor. Not with forgiveness. Not with patience. But with action. And somewhere, in one of those long talks, in one of those long nights when the city slept unaware, a terrible idea took root. A plan built not in shouts, but in whispers. A plan that would change everything. Kyle Carter, the man who thought loyalty and love were enough to protect him, was running out of time, and he didn't even know it. As the weeks wore on, Nia and Marcus found more reasons to meet. At first, it was easy to explain away. A quick coffee after another failed interview. A late-night walk to clear her head. Excuses that slipped past Kyle because he wanted to believe them. Because he needed to. But the truth was growing too fast to stay hidden. Phone records would later show dozens of late-night calls between Nia and Marcus. Sometimes short, sometimes stretching into the early morning hours. Conversations filled with quiet laughter and darker thoughts. When they spoke about Kyle, it wasn't with sadness. It wasn't with guilt. It was with mockery. Jokes about his loyalty, his predictable habits, his trust, the very thing that made him easy to love, now making him easy to betray. One night, when the laughter faded and the silence stretched long enough for new ideas to slip through, Marcus said it. Words dropped low and easy, like a suggestion tossed into the wind. You tired of him doubting you? Maybe it's time to move on the permanent way. Nia laughed. A short, sharp laugh that didn't quite reach her eyes. She shook her head, called him crazy, told him to stop playing. But she didn't end the conversation. She didn't get up and leave. And Marcus, who had spent his life reading people better than they read themselves, knew what that meant. It wasn't a no. It was a maybe. After that night, things began to shift in small, dangerous ways. Nia asked questions she had never asked before. About locks. About schedules. About habits. One evening, while Cal cooked dinner, Nia leaned against the counter and asked, almost carelessly, "You still leave the back door unlocked when you take out the trash, right?" Cal barely looked up from the stove. He nodded. "Yeah, safer to leave it open than lock myself out." "Why?" Nia smiled. "No reason. Just wondering." But there was a reason. A cold, simple reason that Kyle couldn't see. Nia started studying the apartment layout more carefully, noticing the creaks in the floorboards, the way the front door stuck in the summer heat, the blind spots the security cameras couldn't reach. It was never spoken out loud. Not yet. But step by step, word by word, Nia was building something. A blueprint, a map, and every casual question, every quiet meeting, every hidden call, brought them one step closer to a night that would leave blood on the floor and silence in its place. Kyle Carter still smiled when he kissed Nia goodnight. He still believed they were working through things. He still thought love could fix what was broken. But some breaks, once they happen, can never be mended. And while Kyle slept peacefully in his bed, dreaming of a future he was trying so hard to build, the people he trusted most were planning how to take it all away. Kyle Carter wasn't blind. He felt the shift long before he understood it. Nia's distance wasn't sudden. Crept in slowly. Missed calls. Half-hearted answers. Hugs that ended a second too soon. At first, Kyle tried to explain it away. Stress. Work. Money problems. Anything but the truth he didn't want to face. But some truths have a way of forcing themselves into the light. Arguments started over things that never mattered before. Forgotten chores. A text left unread. A comment taken the wrong way. Each fight left a crack between them, and Nia made sure those cracks widened. Blaming him, accusing him, finding reasons to be angry, even when none existed. Kyle, loyal to a fault, still held on. Still believed he could fix it. He planned a date night, dinner at the place where they had their first real conversation. Reservations made. Her favorite dessert ordered in advance. A small, quiet hope clinging to the idea that maybe all they needed was a little time together. But across the city, Marcus Lee had different plans. He moved through dim streets and back alley shops, buying what he needed with cash and a fake name. A set of gloves. A long, serrated knife. Things no one would question until it was too late. While Kyle set the table for two, folding napkins with hands that trembled slightly from nerves, Nia was preparing something else. A window left unlatched. A doorframe tested for how easily it stuck. Questions asked about Kyle's routines slipped casually into conversation. You still take the trash out right after dinner? You still lock the front but not the back? Kyle answered without thinking. Trust can be the loudest silence of all. The night before it happened, Kyle stood by the stove, stirring sauce for pasta he hoped she would like. Nia leaned against the counter, arms folded, eyes somewhere far away. When he turned to smile at her, she didn't smile back. Instead, she picked a fight. A sharp word about something forgotten. A slammed plate. An accusation that made no sense. Kyle tried to calm her. Tried to hold her hand. Tried to apologize for things he hadn't even done. But Nia wasn't looking for peace. She was looking for a way out. She grabbed her purse. Pulled on her jacket. Said she needed air. And just like that, she was gone. Kyle stood in the middle of the kitchen, surrounded by the scent of burned sauce and the sound of a door closing softly behind her. Across town, Marcus waited. Phone in hand. Breathing slow. Watching the minutes tick by. When the signal came, a single text from Nia that simply read, "Now he moved." No loud engines. No flashing lights. Just footsteps against empty sidewalks and the city too busy to notice. The window, just as promised, was easy to slip through. The door, sticking slightly as expected, gave way with a quiet push. Inside, Kyle sat on the couch, phone in hand, scrolling through old pictures. Pictures of Nia smiling. Pictures of a life he still thought he could save. He never heard the first step, or the second. By the time he looked up, Marcus was already there. What happened next wasn't a struggle. It wasn't a fight. It was a moment, a single terrible moment, when trust met betrayal face to face, and trust lost. The next morning, the quiet of Kyle Carter's apartment complex was broken by flashing lights and questions no one wanted to ask out loud. Inside, officers found a scene that didn't make sense. Kyle's body lay on the living room floor. Multiple stab wounds. Blood soaked into the carpet. Furniture undisturbed. No sign of a forced entry. No sign of a struggle. It was as if death had simply walked through the door and found him waiting. Neighbors reported hearing nothing unusual. No screams. No fights. Just silence until it was too late. When Nia Brooks arrived at the scene, her reaction set off the first quiet alarms. No tears. No shouting. No desperate questions. Just blankness, a tired, almost bored sadness that didn't match the moment. Detectives watched carefully. People show you who they are when they think no one is looking. And what they saw left them uneasy. The investigation started small with the things closest to Kyle, his phone, his apartment, his habits. Then it spread outward. Phone records were pulled. Surveillance cameras from nearby stores and traffic lights were reviewed. And what they found was something they couldn't explain away. Footage showed Nia entering Kyle's apartment building just after 7 p.m., smiling slightly, carrying nothing. Minutes later, Marcus Lee appeared on the same footage. No bags. No reason to be there. No connection to Kyle that anyone could see. Separate entrances. Separate times. But the same destination. When detectives checked their phone logs, the connections tightened like a noose. Dozens of calls in the days leading up to the murder. Frequent texts the night Kyle died. Calls again in the early morning hours after it was all over. It wasn't just bad timing. It wasn't just coincidence. It was planning. Outside, behind a dumpster 2 blocks away, crime scene technicians found more proof. A pile of bloody clothes hidden under broken boxes. Gloves. A long serrated knife. All bearing fingerprints that matched one man, Marcus Lee. Brought in for questioning, Marcus sat silent for hours. Arms crossed. Eyes cold. But silence never lasts forever. When the detectives laid out the evidence, the calls, the footage, the fingerprints, cracks began to show. And when they promised him a lighter sentence for cooperation, Marcus finally spoke. What he said turned the case upside down. Marcus didn't describe himself as the mastermind. He didn't say he acted alone. He pointed the finger at Nia. He said it was her idea. That she had planted it, fed it, pushed it along. She promised him money. She promised him a future. She promised him they would both be free, both be better off. Marcus painted a picture of a woman who didn't just want Kyle gone, but needed him gone. A woman tired of feeling small, tired of feeling doubted, tired of being reminded of everything she had not yet become. A woman who looked at Marcus not as a partner, but as a tool. In her mind, Marcus was supposed to do the dirty work. She would stay clean, innocent, grieving. She thought she would walk away untouched. But Marcus had no reason to protect her anymore. Not now. Not after everything. Every promise she made was broken. Every dream she sold him faded into nothing. And now he would return the favor. He told the detectives everything. Where they met. What they planned. What Nia promised. And with that confession, the web Nia had built, thread by careful thread, began to fall apart. She wasn't just part of the crime. She was at the center of it. And the story she thought she had under control was now slipping out of her hands. The arrests came quietly. No car chases. No last-minute escapes. Just two people taken from two different corners of the city, both caught in a story they could no longer control. Marcus Lee didn't fight the charges. He knew what the evidence said. He knew what the cameras showed. He pled guilty, not out of regret, but because the weight of it all was too much to pretend against. In exchange for his cooperation, the prosecution offered him a reduced sentence. He took it without hesitation. Nia Brooks took a different path. In every interview, in every court appearance, she painted herself as the victim. She told the jury Marcus had been obsessed with her, that he twisted her words, that he had stalked her, that he had acted alone. Tears came easily when she spoke. Stories shifted slightly with every telling, small details changing like leaves caught in the wind. She said she had no idea Marcus would hurt Kyle. She said she had only ever wanted peace. But the phone records didn't lie. The surveillance footage didn't lie. The unlocked window, the missing minutes, the laughter in texts sent just hours before Kyle's death, none of it lied. As the trial stretched on, the courtroom grew heavier. Jurors leaned forward, studying every glance, every tremble of her hand, every calculated pause. Was she the puppet master? Or just another thread caught in someone else's plan? They weighed her words against the cold facts, against Marcus's confession, against a timeline that didn't leave room for coincidence. Day after day, brick by brick, the case against her was built. And when the final piece was placed, the jury did not take long to decide. Guilty. Both Nia Brooks and Marcus Lee convicted of murder and conspiracy. Not just a moment of rage. Not just a mistake. But a choice planned, nurtured, and carried out without mercy. The courtroom emptied slowly that day. Families wept. Reporters scribbled. Doors closed. But for Kyle Carter, there were no more second chances. No more plans to fix things. No more futures to build. Kyle trusted Nia. Nia trusted a stranger. And the stranger trusted no one but chaos. One comment. One wounded ego. One night where everything spun too far out of reach. And in the end, it wasn't just one life lost. It was 3 lives broken forever by a choice that could never be undone. One comment. One wounded ego. Led to betrayal, bloodshed, and 2 lives forever chained by a single deadly choice. How far would you go to prove your worth? And when does ambition turn deadly? In a world where trust can be broken with a word and love can be used as a weapon, the line between right and wrong can vanish without a sound. If you found this story chilling, subscribe for more true crime stories that uncover the darkness hidden in everyday life. Stories where ordinary moments turn into final moments and choices echo forever.